Welcome to the SnapScale Show, hosted by Mike Yablonowitz and Nathan Bush. In every episode, we explore the real challenges and breakthroughs happening in modern healthcare operations, from navigating compliance to virtual staffing and emerging technology. You will hear real stories from clinics, learn from healthcare leaders, and uncover practical strategies that help you run a smoother, more efficient practice, without losing focus on what matters most: patient care. SnapScale exists to take the pressure off your front office and administration work, so you can get back to doing what you love. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel to get the latest episodes, and visit snapscale.com to learn more. Let's simplify healthcare operations together. This is the SnapScale Show.
Welcome back for this special episode of the SnapScale Show. I'm super excited today to have a special guest with us. This guest is a little bit of a different show. Normally, we bring you healthcare providers or clinicians. We bring you consultants or people that can support your practice in one way or another. But today, I want to bring you somebody that can support your financial efforts. I want to put in place for you a resource that will extend beyond just clinical stuff. And today we're going to talk a little bit about what you can do with the money that you're making, the savings that you're setting aside, and the profit that your clinics are finally starting to generate because you are utilizing HIPAA compliant healthcare virtual assistants to help with workflows and staffing. And so I can't tell you enough how excited I am to introduce a friend of mine he's become. His name is Mark Monroe, and Mark Monroe is the author of one of the best-selling books called Creative Real Estate Investing. He has over 500 million in real estate transactions. He's worked with private equity investors, real estate developers, and consultants. And he's just an all-around good guy. I'd like to welcome to the show and introduce all of you guys to Mark Monroe. What's up, Mark? How are you?
Hey, I'm doing well, Nathan. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm excited. We've been talking about this for a while. Michael and I, when he was down here in Florida, we talked about, trying to get some value back to your community because you guys doing an amazing job and helping everybody out. And so it's just a great fit. So thank you so much for having me on. I really, truly appreciate it.
Absolutely, guys. If you're a physician and you work with great patients and you want your money working for you, today's show, you're not going to want to miss what Mark has to share with you. I'm telling you right now, we've sourced all over the country for some of the best opportunities and resources for you. And today is going to be no different. Mark, I want to start off and just ask you, what got you into real estate?
Well, currently I live in Boca Raton, Florida now. But I'm originally from Vermont, the Killington area. And so really what made me get into real estate is I grew up in poverty in Vermont. My father left when I was like 7 years old. So it was myself, my mom, and my two sisters. And my mother was struggling. So I remember for breakfast, lunch, and dinner for 3 months straight, all we ate was Kraft macaroni and cheese out of a box. And I remember it was 29 cents because I had to go to the store. And also during that same time period, she had no money for fuel. So we all just sleep on the kitchen floor for the winter for the oven. So, and on top of it, I had a severe case of ADHD. So I couldn't sit still in class. So I just knew going forward in life, I never wanted to be put in that situation. So then what happened was I had to do some odd jobs, help put some food on the table. And I started working at McDonald's, believe it or not, at the age of 14. And that's where my ADHD kicked in. I excelled because I could multitask and do 100 things at once. And I learned business at such a young age. And when I was a senior in high school, I was in charge of 170 employees. I ended up working my way up and being in charge of a region, and they paid for my schooling. And then I was transferring down from the New England down to the Baltimore, DC area to be in charge close to 100 stores. By this time, I was age 24. But I wanted to know a little bit more about real estate because I did my first deal when I was 19. I had no clue what I was doing as a creative deal where I bought it through, we did the Carlton Sheets course. And we took cardboard box, we buy houses. I went and put it up on the telephone pole. And I was 19. I got in trouble by a municipality for, putting signs up on the telephone pole. So I went and took it down. Well, during that time period, this guy called me up And he goes, "Hey, I got this mobile home for sale. It's worth 21,000. Give me 18." I go, "I'm not interested in a mobile home." Then he called me back a week later, goes, "Give me 15,000. It's worth 21,000 or 21,000." I'm like, "I'm not interested." Calls me back a week later, goes, "Give me 12,000." I go, "Do you own the land?" He goes, "No." I said, "I'm not interested in mobile home." So then a month goes by. He calls me again. He goes, "I got, you know, sell this property to you, mobile home for $6,000 is worth 21." I'm like, "Well, why do you need to sell it?" He goes, "Because I don't live in the property. I got lot rent." And so I told you I'm not interested in a mobile home, but this is what I'll do to help you out. I'll give you $3,000. So give me 4,000. I'm like, "I'm not interested." So we agreed to the 3,000. The internet wasn't around then, so I had to go, "Okay, I'll go to the office store to get a contract, and I'll come out and do an inspection of the property." Well, when I hung up the phone, called the newspaper, and I placed an ad on the newspaper, mobile home for sale for $25,000, owner financing with $3,000 down. This first lady called me up. Her and her husband went out, looked at it. They liked it. They gave me the $3,000. I took that $3,000, gave it to the seller to buy it, and I ended up creating a note, a mortgage note, on that mobile home for it was like almost 8%, like seven and three quarters over 7 years. It was $300 a month. So at 19, that was my car payment insurance. That was a lot of money then. So I was at 19, I did the first deal, but then I got stuck into the corporate world for a good 5 6 years in the McDonald's environment. But then I realized even then, no, I was doing well and I was working my way up. There still wasn't enough money to be able to survive. So I wanted to learn more about real estate. And then when I was transferring down to the DC area, I was taking 2 months off and I wanted to learn a little bit more. So I went and took this course on originating. And the instructor said, "Hey, why don't you come work for me?" He liked me. So I ended up went to work for him and just never looked back. I was making like at 2 to 3 months, I was making as much money doing mortgage loans, originating loans as a mortgage broker than I was at McDonald's. And so then I was there for a year and a half, met my two partners, and we started our own mortgage broker firm because I learned business through the McDonald's Corporation, how to put processes, procedures, and everything in place. And we end up becoming a mortgage banking firm, and we end up having 107 loan officers through the Baltimore, DC area, down Virginia, up into Delaware. And I started surrounding myself with like-minded individuals, investors, and that's kind of how I got into the real estate game. And started out as a banker on the banking side, and now I've just been in investing. But I've always been investing once I got into the business, and now over the years, I just evolved on doing all these different type of strategies, mainly the seller financing strategies, because a lot of people don't understand how they can buy properties with very little money to no money down. That's the so it kind of evolved, but I've also been doing land development, multifamily. So I work with a lot of other individuals that have income that want to put their capital to work. And especially I work with a lot of physicians and dentists over the years and CPAs and attorneys where they want to put the capital to work through passive income. They want the tax depreciation kind of offset some of the taxes. So anyways, that's how I got into this. It was a little bit long story, but hopefully that helped.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk about it, and we can dive in a little bit deeper into this concept of physicians and dentists and why they're uniquely positioned in order to be investing in real estate. There's a lot of different opportunities for people who they do different jobs, they do different professions, but for some reason, physicians and dentists, they seem uniquely positioned to be real estate investors. What makes this a attractive kind of retirement program, wealth building strategy?
Well, you're diversifying. That's one aspect of it. And a lot of times physicians are so busy with their day-to-day jobs, they will all want to get into real estate. They just don't have the time. So they want to find experts that are in the industry and kind of work with those particular experts. That's really what it comes down to. But I've seen them do it several different ways. Sometimes they just want to be a note holder. They want to put their money as the becoming the bank and they generate passive income through that. And they have that coming in and then they have the assets collateral. Then I have some that we sell the property off to them. We have a property management team in place to get. So what we do is we find properties, we usually fix them up, and then we'll sell them off to different individuals like dentists, physicians, whoever it may be. They buy the property, and we put a tenant in there, and then we have a property manager, so they get the depreciation because they need to offset some of their taxes. We get a lot of those, and then we also have people. We purchased 5 mobile home parks in the last 18 months. Sometimes those people want to be put into a syndication model, if you will, where they end up owning a little piece of the mobile home park, depending on how much capital they put into the deal. So there's different type of real estate vehicles, if you will. It all comes down to what they really are looking for in the return and how they want to be involved. Sometimes some want hands off and some people want to be hands on. So it's case by case on every individual in it. So it makes it a win all the way around for everybody on it.
Yeah, those vehicles are interesting. Let's dive into those just a little bit, Mark. So, because people might not be as familiar, you say the word syndication, and you and I got a background in real estate, so I know what that is. I'm sure you know what that is, but that might be a new term for some of the physicians who might not have heard the word syndication before. What is a syndication? Is it a regulated investment? Like, how does that work?
So it is regulated. It depends on if there's different, you have 501(c)(3)s, and so it depends on if you know the individual or if they're a accredited investor. Typically, they're accredited investors, so so they have that, so they get into it. So, excuse me one second. I just got back from Greece and I've had this cold, and so sometimes it might back my throat. I should have actually. Oh, here's a cough drop. So, anyways, so syndication model could be many different ways. Um, for a long time, from 2014 to 2020, multifamily was the big thing. Everybody was jumping into multifamily, and so you would have an operator, in which I've had a couple of them. So you have an operator that operates the property, and it would be like say an example of an LLC. So it'd be like 30% usually the general partner, the company that runs it and puts everything together. And then you have 70% that are passive investors that put their money into it. And then, they go out and get the financing as well. But any investor that they put down for the down payment, or like they do a value add where they're fixing the property up, so they're increasing the rents, they will they own that part of the 70%. You get a share. Think of like you're buying stock in Amazon. Okay. You can buy stock in Amazon, you own a percentage of it, and as the company does well, you get a return. But this is in a smaller pool. You may have anywhere between 10 investors up to maybe 50 to 100 investors, depending on how big the project is. If it's 30 million or if it's like 5 million, it all depends. So they own a share of that LLC, and they get usually quarterly distributions. And then at the end, it's usually like a 5 or 7 year. Then they get the payout at the end. It's usually, it can be anywhere between, and I don't want to really get in percentage returns, but it can anywhere between a 10% to a 20 to 25% yearly return on the money. It depends on the project. But then you also have ones that just want to do the single family. You get a lot of those because they understand it and they just want to get in for a couple $100,000 and put their capital work and kind of test it out and see how it goes. So it's a case by case, depending on the individual's needs and what they're kind of doing. So they diversify. And the other aspect of it that a lot of people may not be aware is that if they have a 401(k) and IRA, they can use that in the vehicle. So when they generate income, it goes back into the retirement fund, so they don't have to pay the taxes all at once. It's all being built right into the retirement fund.
When you're talking about a syndication investment, because it might be new to a lot of physicians, Mark, is there a tax benefit? Is there a depreciation benefit? Is there, uh, do they have to deal with tenants and termites and toilets and all that kind of stuff? I know it's a three-part question, but tax benefits, what's their involvement?
Usually you do get the depreciation, the tax benefit, and then also you get a lot of times when you go in, they do when they first take a property over, they do what's called cost segregation. So, for example, um, one of the mobile home park, the minimum in that one was $50,000, and we did cost segregation. So they got a K1, and they had the first year they got $11,000 loss because they did a cost segregation on the property. So what that is this a company goes out there, deducts all the appreciation, you're getting it all at once. So that's a huge tax savings for. But you can even do that on single family. Like if you own one single family, you can do a cost segregation. Typically, you want to do that investment property, so it helps for the tax purposes. That's the main reason why a lot of people get into real estate, is because of the tax savings that offsets it. And then it's also you're generating passive income monthly, and you're banking on the appreciation of the value over time. But so then typically they don't deal with any of the tenants. If you're talking syndication, they're typically not dealing with any tenants. It's usually the general partners that are running it. If it's a bigger LLC partnership, you have the GPs, general partners running it, the sponsor, if you will, and then the LPs, limited partners, like the physicians, those guys, they don't do anything with it. They get the checks, um, but they're on the calls listening. But the general partners are running the whole entire show. It's kind of like, think of, like, I use Amazon. You're not dealing with the employees, you're not dealing with the headaches, you're not dealing with any of that stuff, but you're getting distributions and your stock shares goes up. It's kind of that type of model. Um, but a lot of times, where a lot of people, the physicians I see that I'm working with, they want to own single family homes, or they want to become the bank, and they want to just put their they don't want to deal with any of that stuff, and they want to be the bank. They don't want to worry about if they have an issue with the property manager. They don't want to, like, any type of repairs, and that, and they just want to become the bank, and they don't care if there's a leaking toilet, if you will. So
Mhm.
it's a case by case, but most of them, what I see is they do the syndication model, or they're buying usually usually they buy about 3 single family homes a year. And if they keep adding it up, they're going to end up having a portfolio at the end. But if you're doing about 3 to 5 single families a year, you're getting enough depreciation to offset those taxes.
Yeah, and so there's the syndication model, but you're then also talking about being the bank. And so what is the how would a physician know in their gut if they're more of a syndication investor or maybe more of a note investor and they want to be the bank?
It really depends on what their risk level, because on the syndication levels, you do get a little bit of a higher return, but there's more risk. Versus a bank, you're going to have equity in it, and if anything happens, you get that asset back, and it's more secured against that asset. And it's less moving parts compared to syndication. Is more moving parts. You're dealing with multiple units. You're dealing with more people that are running it. There's a lot more moving parts on that particular, but you do get a good return on the syndication, but also the bank. But so I'm really talking about three things. You're talking about the syndication. Okay. You're talking about the bank if they want to, like, say, for example, if I'm buying a property and I want some capital, and I want to, instead of going to a bank, and I want to bring some capital partner, or if we're doing a down payment, if we're doing a development project or anything like that, they're coming to the table and we're using their capital as a down payment. And then we typically go to our lending. We have great relationships with different particular lenders, credit unions, whoever we're using, depending on the asset class, and then we get the financing. So they could be a partner in the project, or they can just be the bank and fund the whole project. Like, say, hey, we're doing this fix and flip rehab, and it's a hard money loan, and it's at 10, 12%. You're getting a return, and then you're going to get your money back at the end of the year. So that's one way of being a bank. Or they want to, like, be a bank, and they at a 5-year balloon, and they get the capital back. Okay. So that's one aspect of it. Okay. Then the other aspect of it is they actually buy a property that we take through the process, and we get it set up. They buy a property, they own the property, it's in their name or their LLC or their IRA, whatever, however they're holding it for their tax. Usually we recommend is an IRA, or an LLC that's owned by the IRA, because it's all the income that comes in is going to go back into the IRA, so it helps with your tax. It's a whole big tax strategy on it. And if anybody wants to know more about it, we can set up another Zoom, and we can kind of bring somebody on for that as well, or we just reach out and have that conversation. Um, so then they usually get that, because that's where the biggest depreciation comes from, is when they actually own an asset themselves in their particular company or a partnership, whatever they want it. And then the syndication is the third one, when there's a group of investors coming in, 10, 50, 100 investors, depending on a $30 million project. Look at when you're driving down the street, you have storage facilities as a syndication, you have mobile home parks, you have big shopping centers, and you also have, like, big office buildings. A lot of people are staying away from the office buildings. It's starting to come back a little bit. And then also, like, what was the other thing? Mobile home parks, storage, multifamily. Those are typically where the bigger groups of people come in and own a share. Now, what's happened is it tends to be a cycle. Like I was saying earlier, from 2014 to 2020, everybody jumped in multifamily. Then what happened was, when multifamily, everybody got into it, so everybody overpaid. So there's a lot of people in the multifamily that got in the late like from 2018 to 20. When they did their model, so what they normally do is they do value add, like they're fixing a property up. They're taking like 5 million, 10 million, whatever it is, fixing the properties up, redoing everything. And when they did the model, when they refinanced off of the construction loan, they did it like around 4.5, 4.75. Now today's rates on those projects are around 6.5 to 7%, maybe 7.25. So some of those models got really into trouble. So you want to be careful of where you're at in the cycle. So, and now then everybody jumped over to storage facilities. So storage facilities like from 2020 to 2000, like 23, 24, the same thing happened. They did a value add model. So you always want to see where you're at in the cycle and see where everybody's going. So what I tend to do is where I ever see everybody going and they're starting to pay higher prices, you back out. So about 2 years ago, I started jumping into the mobile home parks. And because now you see everybody jumping into the mobile home parks, and now I'm starting to see the same thing happen where the prices are starting to go up. So we're very selective on what type of parks that we're doing currently right now. And the reason why we jumped into it is when the interest rates jumped higher, we saw a need for affordable housing. That was the biggest issue. So we jumped in early while everybody is still over in the storage facility. We jumped into the mobile home parks and we did really well on several of our parks currently. But now the parks that we're seeing more underwriting, we're seeing some come in, but we're turning away more because now they're getting a lot more people getting multiple offers and they're starting to push the prices up on the mobile home park. So you always want to be a cycle. Now, and the other thing that we're seeing also is the adult living facilities. We're starting to see syndications over there. That's another big area where a lot of investors are jumping in because we had the baby boomers coming in. We're seeing that, but now we picked up a couple of them. We picked up one that we just closed in Kentucky, 2 months ago. One of my students, she did an amazing job. She's actually, talked about Hawaii before, but she's in Hawaii, and she did an amazing job taking down that one. And I helped out. We got involved in that particular one, but she did most of that all on her own. But so I'm really happy on her on that one. But that was a great project for her, and I got involved with some investors on that particular one as well.
That's great. We're talking with Mark Monroe, and if you're a physician or clinician and you're wondering, why are we talking to a real estate guy on the SnapScale show? Again, you can go back and watch the intro, but we want to make sure that we're providing you value and resources and other opportunities for, you work hard for your patients, let your money work hard for you in this scenario. And Mark is an expert. He's written a best-selling book on creative real estate, and he also has done over $500 million in real estate transactions. There is thousands of different people in the real estate industry that you could talk to. We specifically selected Mark because he understands where the market has been, where it's at right now, and where it's going. We've talked a lot so far this show about, why physicians, what benefits are in real estate for physicians. And we've also talked a little bit about the different types of deals. We talked about syndications or note investing, becoming the bank. Mark also talked about investing in single family homes or trailer parks. These are all different creative strategies that physicians right now today are using in order to let their money work hard for them while they're working hard for their patients. It's SnapScale. It's a big thing for us, Mark. We want to alleviate the workload off of people and provide them the staffing, the resources, the support so that they can support their clinic. You kind of do that with real estate. You a lot of different strategies, a lot of different approaches, and I'm sure that you've had people come to you that they have their own ideas, their own thought processes about what they want to do in real estate, and they end up doing something completely different in real estate. Why is that?
One of the big things I do out there is, especially in the seller financing space, and another thing we talked about is buying notes and selling notes, mortgage notes. That's another whole thing that we tend to work on. But I've been really out there, really educating. I speak at a lot of real estate events throughout the country. I was supposed to actually speak in Dallas next week, but I postponed it because I thought I was going to be in Greece, and we ended up going to Greece, and we just got back. But the big thing out there is there's some of these guys that we call gurus, if you will, and teaching people, creative real estate investing, if you will, what we call subject to. And what it is, it's a strategy. Physicians don't need to do this strategy, but what it is you're buying a property subject to the existing mortgage. where you're keeping the mortgage in the seller's name, the original, and then they're transferring the deed to the new owner. Typically, it's been around for 30 or 40 years, and it's usually a seller that's facing foreclosure and there's not, or they don't have enough equity, they can't get underneath it. So it's a great strategy for us investors to buy a property where we don't have to go to the bank and deal with the headaches and the lender. Okay. But they've been teaching it incorrectly, and they do what's called wholesaling. Wholesaling is was designed for fix and flips. Property you drive down, it's a rundown. Wholesaler, they go knock on the door, they cut a deal with the investor, they get a discount, they write the contract up, and then they bring it to a fix and flip investor. And then the fix and flip investor will take it and run with it there. And that wholesaler gets paid what we call an assignment fee or a wholesale fee, like $5,000, $10,000, something like that. And that's how typically a lot of people start out, these young 20-year-olds. Well, it was never designed for the seller financing world, what we call subject to. It was always designed for us investors to buy the property, stay in it, and it's causing a lot of problems in the industry where they're taking these contracts, selling the contract to another person, and not qualifying that buyer correctly to make sure that the buyer can make the payments. So I've been really out there educating, pounding and pounding and pounding and speaking at a lot of events that a lot of these people don't even aware that there's consumer protection regulations. So if you're putting a homestead buyer into that property on a seller financing and they're going to live into it, you have consumer protection regulations, and these guys have no clue about it. They're just looking for that huge, oh, I'm trying to get that big assignment fee, $20,000, $25,000. So I've been really out there, really educating and pushing on that. And I get so many people calling me up that got into a bad situation about a deal that they shouldn't have, and the deal's going sideways. And so that's in the creative world space, on that particular. But then you have the traditional side where we work with people that have capital and we put that capital to work for them. So there's two, like I'm in multiple worlds. In real estate, you can there's so many different ways of making money in real estate. You just got to understand what's your lane that you want to go down, if that makes sense. I don't know if that answered your question though.
Yeah, no, I mean, people are they have a certain idea, that a strategy that they want to use, or something that they heard and read in a book or whatever, and they think they're going to get into real estate and apply it in a specific way. And I'm not saying that you need a coach or a mentor all the time in order to be able to get into real estate, but it's best to work with people who do know what they're doing. And I've got a core value of taking 100% responsibility for all of the outcomes, right? At SnapScale, we've got this core value of taking 100% responsibility for the outcomes. And so one of the challenges that people run into is that they will take the responsibility of buying the property, but then transfer that responsibility to somebody else. And when they transfer that responsibility to somebody else, that's when they get themselves into major trouble. They lose control of a deal. They lose control of a transaction. And it's the same thing in the subject to world, where you've got somebody that is buying the property and the owner's holding on to the note, but the payments aren't getting made. And so they're not taking responsibility at the end buyer level to be able to make sure that they can make those payments. They're not taking responsibility in the wholesale world. I mean, it's kind of like a VA that's working for a doctor that's never been trained by the doctor to run their clinic,
It's exactly what it is. And that's what we're out there. We're always harping on educate, 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 because they don't, they think they know what they don't know. Does that make sense what I'm saying? It's a little
Yeah.
confusing, but they just don't know what they don't know. But it really comes down to, in real estate in general, mainly in the seller financing, but in any space, when you're talking to a seller, when you're talking to a buyer, when you have that conversation, the reason why you get the best deals and the reason why things go so well is because you have to treat it like a marriage. Think about it, the first time you went with your significant other out on that date, the first time you got to know each other. So when you're doing a real estate transaction with a buyer, with a seller, or tenants or whatever, you always want to treat people that you got to look at it, it's a long-term commitment. So if something goes bad, if you have a good relationship, like with my tenants and I hold a lot of mortgage notes as well. If something happens and they're going to default or they're going to be behind, I would say about 95% of my people reach out to us ahead of time and say, "Hey, I want to give you heads up. This has come up. I missed some work because I was out and injured. They're reaching out to us ahead of time, telling us that there's going to be an issue where we're not chasing them. Because in the beginning, if you set the right expectations and treat it as a relationship, think of it like a marriage, you have that type of situation, things go a lot smoother. So if something goes bad and they can't make that payment, if you're selling it on a seller financing and they can't make that payment, they're going to reach out to you and say, hey, this is what's going on. And then you work with them. And oftentimes, us as investors, we end up coming ahead if you do things correctly the right way. So it's all about relationship networking and treat the people how you want to be treated. I always tell people, think of it, if it's like your mother, how's your mother? How would you want your mother to be treated in that situation?
Yeah. Mark, is there a checklist or just some red flags that somebody should look for before they get into a partnership with somebody that's a quote unquote real estate expert or guru? How do they know who they should work with?
Nowadays, you can really find information on somebody. It's really, really key to have a good name. If somebody did something bad, most of the time, a lot of us in the industry are posting stuff out there, or people saying, "Hey, this was what happened with me with this one and that one." Um, it's a small niche once you get out there. If you do your research on it and just start Googling and do, most of that information will come up. You're gonna so that shouldn't be any type of issues. Just make sure if you're doing a minimum of 10 to 15 years of in the business. And I always tell people, if how many deals have you had that went bad in the litigation? You want to have somebody that has experience, that had some deals that have gone bad, so they can kind of know what to expect and kind of prevent things ahead of time, to look out for. If they've never had a deal that's gone bad, that's kind of a red flag, because deals have issues. And if you're ahead of it and you know what to look for, then that kind of helps a lot along the way. That's really what it comes down to.
Yeah. Have you ever lost money on a deal before, Mark?
100%. 100%. I did, I don't want to get, I'm trying to think of the right way of saying this. Especially in non landlord friendly states. Let me rephrase it that way. So
Yeah,
we're very cautious on where we do business.
that's great. Yeah. So there's deals that go bad, but then there's the good ones. Do you have any examples of deals that you have done that kind of case study example of working with physicians and them seeing some success?
Well, I have I got to be careful of giving numbers out,
Sure.
because there's some rules there in the SEC. As long as everybody's credited. But anyways, it depends. Like, we've had deals where people have doubled their money, better than the average returns than what they get in the market. Um, 20 anywhere from 10%, 20%. That's usually the case. It depends on, again, it depends on the deal, and it depends on the risk that they want in the deal. Like the syndication, some of the other ones, they get, if it's a higher risk, they get a higher return. If it's less risk, and they have more security, then it's typically a lower return. Like, when I say lower, 8, 10, 12% type of returns, but those are still great returns, and it's consistent. But most of the time, I mean, I could sit there and go on different type of situations, different ones, but usually they're doubling their money most of the time, doing better than what they're typically doing in the market. If you look at real estate, however, the AI boom lately has been changing that whole thing. That kind of might have changed the metrics a little bit. But typically, if you look at long term, real estate is always done performing, and you're just kind of diversifying. So if something happens with the stock market, you have the real estate, and real estate is a asset that you have, as collateral. Hopefully, that makes a little sense on that.
Yeah. Got a couple more questions, and then we'll wrap up, Mark. But let's go through kind of. I'm a new investor. I've never invested in real estate before. I've been a physician for 20 years. I've saved up $70,000-$80,000. I've got other savings. I've got other investments. This is something that I want to try to do and get involved in. What do I do with that first $70,000-$80,000? What's your thoughts?
Sure. So it depends. Are you looking for depreciation? That's one question. Or are you looking for or you want to become more of a bank and have that monthly money coming in? And the other thing is what you want to look at is an amortization schedule and see how much money you can make over time. I'll just give you a quick example. At a 5% interest rate, have you ever looked at an amortization schedule?
Yeah.
Okay. So if you never looked at an amortization schedule, go to a website, type in amortization schedule, type in like 150,000, 200,000, whatever it may be. Do it like at 7 or 8% interest rate. Here, I'll do it right now, real quick. I have my calculator right here. I'll just do one real quick, so you can get an idea of how you want to handle that. So let's say it's 150,000. Whoops. Okay. And if I want to do it, let's say at a 10% interest rate, amortize that 30 years with like say a 5-year balloon. Okay. I go to my amortization, go down to 60 payments. Okay. And it'll be 62 payments. So in that case there, on a on a like I said, 150,000, they would have collected $81,000 in payments, and the payoff would have been another 100. So remember, the loan was for 150,000. Okay, the payoff they would have collected in this case 81,614, and then the payoff of the balloon is 144,530. So they're getting almost all the 150 back, but they would have made they would have made $76,256 becoming the bank over 5 years in that case. That's just one example how they're getting the money back. So they're getting the money back. That's at a 10% return. So that's one way of looking at it. That's where if you want to become the bank, you want to lend against your money. And then you can do hard money loans too, like guys that want to do a fix and flip and interest only, and you're getting those interest payments over 12 months. That's another way of going about it. But I would say if they're looking for 50, 60,000, figure out what you like. Are you want to be part of a bigger deal, or you want to just looking at something safe? You want to become the bank. So it really depends on the risk factor. Everybody's different. Like, Nathan, you may be interested in one thing, and let's take AI right now. What are you interested in the AI world right now compared to somebody else is just in something different? I'm sure you guys are implementing a lot of AI into your whole business model and helping the physicians with their business model because everything's going to AI model. So you got to figure out it's the same concept.
Yeah, we absolutely believe that you can't take the care out of healthcare, and we absolutely believe that all tech-enabled platforms need some type of human reviewing the information, being a part of the information, because robots should not be trying to care for another individual. We definitely believe that. But we're partnered with tech platforms. We're partnered with companies like Highbridge. We're partnered with a verification of benefits organization. We're partnered with an AI that it's really cool. So if a clinician has a client base that's more susceptible to accents, we can reduce the accent. Don't take the human element out of it, but we can reduce the accent of the person that's speaking so that the accent is not as thick and the language comes across much more clear. It's a really cool tech partner that's AI that we're working with here locally. So everybody has a different need, right? When it comes to a virtual assistant and with technology, the same is true, I believe, when it comes to real estate. So Mark, how can people get more involved with you if they want to learn more about real estate, get a better understanding of what they can do with their money?
Sure. Well, you can just Google me, Mark Monroe Real Estate. You'll see everything that comes up. But my website is mark-monroe.com. It's Mark, Mark-Monroe.com. And if anybody wants to schedule like a call with me, I can post a link here down in comments as well. Here, I'll post that now if you want to book a call there. But if you go to Mark Monroe and then if you want to go to one of my company, I got several different websites. But if you want to learn more about investing in some of the deals, just go to TI Assets. Go to markmonroe.com and you can find the website there, or you can go to tiassets.com. But anyways, you can get it from my main page. And there you can actually see some of the deal. You talked about a second ago about some of the different returns and examples. Actually, I do have some on the website, like the 5 one of our 5 mobile home parks there. The return on equity is 1.9 to 2. The projected return is 1.9 to 2.5% return on that. Cash on cash is anywhere between 15 to 19% on something on those. So there's different type of situations depending on what you're looking to do. But again, it's just Google Mark Monroe Real Estate. If you want to schedule a call, you can go ahead and just book. There's a link there, or you can go to any of the websites, like the Mark Monroe Tell You Assets, and just fill out a form as well. But just hit me up. I'm on any of the social media. Just send me a message. You can send me a message on LinkedIn, Facebook, wherever you're at. But I really appreciate it. This was great. Hopefully, this was informative for people that a lot of physicians. I get it. They're in day-to-day life and they're kind of always working, and they tend to do well. I work with quite a few that's actually built up their portfolios over the last several years, and the big thing is that they're looking for is a depreciation because they're getting hit with taxes so much. You're on mute.
I said
There you go.
taxes are squeezing them on one side and insurance is squeezing them on the other. And so there's solutions, guys. That's the whole point to today's show. I appreciate you being with us, Mark. And I'll come back and we'll have a conversation a little bit later. But thank you very much. I appreciate your time today.
Thank you so much for having me on. I truly appreciate it. Have a great one.
Absolutely. All right, guys. Well, there you have it. That is the real estate opportunity that is available for a lot of clinicians. You guys don't have a lot of access to a lot of different stuff. You're busy, you're always working, and because you're aware of SnapScale and we're sharing some of this information, I hope it has been helpful for you. I really want to provide you with a number of resources and tools and just equip you to be able to better run your practice, operate your finances better, develop your mentality, take the vacations you want to, do all the things you've ever wanted to do in life. And so I think that Mark is a good partner. If you guys have any questions about what to do in real estate, he'd be a good guy to reach out to. He had his Calendly link that he posted in the comments. You can book a meeting with him directly. Very accessible guy, willing to have a conversation with you about any strategies or opportunities that you're thinking about in real estate. And he's a good, helpful resource. And so we just wanted to make sure that we were able to get him in front of you. In addition to that, if there's different resources or things that you've been looking into, guys, send them to us. We're happy to vet those things, look through those things, and share with you good opportunities and resources that will help you, again, grow your practice, yourself, your life, and do the things that you want to do. That's what we believe at SnapScale, is that life shouldn't be stressful. You shouldn't be burnt out and overworked, and you shouldn't be underpaid. You should be able to set the right margins and get the right benefit from running your practice. And you go to school to be a physician and you spend a lot of time studying on how to treat and heal, but there's all these other things out there that we have to learn in life. And so we just appreciate opportunities like Mark. And with that said, guys, we will be back again. We've got another webinar that's coming up here very shortly. And I'm going to share with you now all of the new hires from this last quarter that we had here at SnapScale. If you're looking for a HIPAA-compliant healthcare virtual assistant and you need somebody that can do insurance verifications for you, answer phone calls, help you with accounts receivable and billing, prior authorizations, our organization is here to help and support you. Here's just a overview of some of the people that were hired from just last quarter and the different organizations that they work for.